Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our next Fest RMIT Open Day Live Industry Q&A panel session. My name is Mish Eastman and I am the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of the College of Vocational Education here at RMIT. And I'm very pleased to be hosting today's panel discussion about careers of the future with some of our leading industry experts. At RMIT, we pride ourselves on preparing our students for life and work. And one of the ways we do this is by partnering with organisations on projects, offering internships and undertaking other activities with industry. And we know that these experiences provide invaluable opportunities for students to expand their knowledge, learn new professional skills and put theory into practice. But before we kick off today's session, I would like to acknowledge the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nations, on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. RMIT respectfully acknowledges their elders and ancestors, past, present and emerging. And while we conduct our work remotely, I want to pay my respects to the wider unceded lands of this nation. Just a couple of housekeeping call-outs. So before we get started, I wanted to remind all our attendees that we will have time at the end of our panel discussion to go over the questions from the audience. So you are very welcome and encouraged to submit your questions in the Q&A tool on the right-hand side at any time. And we'll do our best to answer as many of those as we can. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available to view on our Open Day platform after the event concludes. So let's meet the members of our panel today. We have three very special guests with us. Firstly, I would like to introduce Susan McKee. Susan is the Chief Executive Officer at Dental Health Services Victoria. Hello, Susan. Also joining us is Ben Smiley. Ben is the APAC Partners and Channel Technology Enablement at GitHub. So welcome, Ben. And last but not least, we have Mike Breeze. Mike is the Program Manager for Mind Your Own Business, or MYOB. Great to have you with us, Mike.
Thank you.
So welcome everyone. We've got a broad range of industries today. So thank you for joining us for today's panel and taking this time out of your worlds and days to share your insights. So before we get started, let's dive right in. I'd be really interested to hear about your role and your organisation. What made you kickstart your career in this industry? So we will start with you perhaps, Mike.
Thank you. I'm a software engineer by trade. I'm on the senior leadership team at MYOB, and we help and provide business management solutions to businesses in Australia and New Zealand. Kickstarting my career, I had a fairly traditional, I would say, and these days old-fashioned software engineering career, which is what a lot of people still think software engineering is about. I think if you picture kind of lone engineers with really big headphones working in cubicles, often in isolation, and that was kind of what it was like until 13, 14 years ago. A company called REA Group who built the website realestate.com.au, and I was lucky enough to be in the first agile and lean teams there, and the way that we worked was transformed then. It's much less a focus on writing code to forming cross-functional teams with all of the people required to deliver a product to the customer, so product managers and testers, business analysts, software engineers working together very closely, face-to-face, collaborating, teamwork. And that was a huge shot in the arm for me personally and for my career. I think it's been a lot more fun working since then.
Thanks, Mike. Very interesting. Thanks for those insights. Susan, I might traverse over to you in our virtual panel next, please, to hear a little bit about you, your company or organisation, and what made you kickstart your career in this industry.
Thanks, Mish. So I am the CEO for Dental Health Services here in Victoria. We run all the public dental services across the state. So we run the Royal Dental Hospital of Melbourne. So we have lots of dentists and oral health therapists and dental assistants, but we also commission about 50 agencies, public dental agencies around the state, to deliver those public services from an oral health perspective. My background is nursing. I started my nursing career when I was 17 years old in a hospital. So I've been in the healthcare industry for a very long time. And I think one of the things for me in healthcare is that you have so many opportunities, and that's why I've stayed in it. I've tried to extricate myself from it several times doing different university degrees, but always end up back in the same place running health services. So I've been in a leadership and management position for over 20 years. And actually, I think we're coming up to 30 years now. So for quite some time, and that's a really exciting part about health. You can work anywhere. I've worked in every state in Australia bar one. You can work in all sorts of different parts of the industry because it's so varied and broad. So that's how I got kickstarted and why I'm still here 30-something plus years later.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. And Ben, certainly last but not least for this question.
Cheers. So GitHub as a company and a technology company, we're basically a foundational piece for software development. And I guess my role within GitHub is helping our partner network in terms of software engineers, designers, across our global partner network. And basically from a technical perspective, supporting those. I guess my role and getting into technology, I was always, as a kid, I was into computer games. I was one of the geeky kids. I didn't start in technology. I actually got a job as a tester working on a project for Telstra through a consulting company, and I've worked through banking and various roles in technology and banking, and supported software development and architecture to get to a point of working in I guess one of the largest. We're owned by Microsoft, largest tech companies in the world. But really, it's kind of something that has been an evolution from working as a tester in a bank or in Telstra through to supporting the world's technologies.
Wonderful, thank you. So my next question is, what excites you about your industry's future, and whether that's growth, whether that's technology, whether that's impact and evolution? So Susan, as a very human-centred business that you work in, what are your thoughts, and what is it on the immediate and next-term horizon about your industry's impact or future that excites you?
I think obviously, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, which is some people apparently saw this coming. Most of us went, oh, didn't see that coming. So those sorts of things are really interesting and challenging, but also there's a shift from putting all of our energies and efforts into that very acute fix-it type of work to how do we actually prevent disease? How do we actually prevent future global pandemics? How do we work with industry in relation to climate change, for example, because that has major impacts on people's health? So how do we actually help people to be healthier so we're actually limiting the impact on their lives going forward? And I think that's an amazing challenge. It's very difficult because it's very long-term thinking, and we know that that's difficult for a lot of people when they actually start to think long-term because they want to see short-term fixes. So I think those challenges will be fascinating and fabulously exciting. For us at Dental Health Services Victoria, we're really leading this challenge across the world. We actually are implementing what we call the principles of value-based healthcare, which looks at how do we add value to people's lives rather than just fix a problem that has been created. And so that's a really exciting time for us in the oral health industry around the country.
Fantastic. Thanks, Susan. And I might go over to you, Mike, around for your industry. What is some of the elements that excite you about what the future looks like, short and medium term, with your industry?
Yeah, thanks, Mish. I guess at its heart is there's a massive growth in the technology industry. So Susan talked a little bit about the pandemic there. COVID-19, it's had a massive impact on us in the last couple of years, and the one of the big impacts there is a we've seen an acceleration in the shift towards digital business, online business, doing more of our business online, living more of our lives online. So digital companies like MYOB, GitHub, Car Sales, Seek, REA Group, Wesfarmers, they're all pulling out really heavily out of this period, building new systems, digitizing, transforming, so that they can provide more in that online space. So more than ever before, we need people, and we need to learn how to cultivate great people to build the products that we need to deliver to help our customers. So it's really exciting to be part of something that's growing so fast, and there's some really big challenges for us to solve. So for me, one of my roles at MYOB is the technology sponsor for our Future Makers program, which cultivates new engineers to come in to our business. It's such an amazing thing to be a part of, learning how to find new ways to cultivate new engineers for our industry.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. And Ben, same perspective from you, please, would be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, we, like Mike said, we support MYOB and various other companies that Mike mentioned. But I guess globally, we're seeing that whole digital adoption and trend and the prevalence of software in every industry, supporting remote services where maybe traditionally things were done in a face-to-face motion. And I think it's just generally that's been exacerbated by the current situation. But from our perspective, I think we've seen more roles hired. We were already operating in a remote capacity before the current situation, and I think that's kind of freed us up to supporting more functions from places like Australia. Big San Francisco company, but we have a number of roles through this last 18 months that we've hired into Australia because we can, and the nature of our work and platform means that we can be supporting things, I guess, more locally in Australia, which is really exciting for me.
Certainly sounds that way. Thank you so much, Ben. I'd be interested in then what's the cusp of career and employability opportunities within each of your sectors and organisations? So, Ben, I might come back to you, given that lead-in that you just gave me, but if we're thinking about what the career options are for early entrants, given that's what a number of our audience members would be, what's that looking like over the next few years? Well, in our post-COVID kind of world?
Yeah, I mean, if I go back to like when I started, in terms of the companies that were hiring technology roles or software development roles, it was, like Telstra and the banks and large organizations. And we go forwards to now, and we've found, organizations like MYOB and technology companies in Australia. And so really, that's just increasing in terms of the number of technology companies and technology roles in my domain in Australia. And I think that goes into the smaller scale kind of startups and companies trying to build for a particular solution need engineers, testers, developers, and really the domestic kind of needs of in Australia are only increasing in terms of software development and technology roles. So it's something that has accelerated recently, but it's a trend that's continuing in terms of the number of early entry roles in startups or technology companies as more evolve domestically in Australia.
And Mike, what about in your particular organisation or field?
Yeah, I mean, specifically in terms of roles, there's product design, product management, your kind of classic software engineering, full stack software engineers, testing. What else is? I think the really big ones coming through at the moment are cybersecurity. We're seeing huge demand in that space, and also a lot of interest in our graduates joining our program. That's where they want to be working coming years. Data management, data science, very big. It's incredible also, to me, I think from when I first started, is how productive and how valuable our graduate software engineers are. So, and I think it's testament to the technology's changed, the languages are easy to use, frameworks are easy to use, but we're better at mentoring and teaching as well. So we see, you know, our new engineers coming in and being very productive from almost from day one, really. We get them kind of on the tools and into production code, hopefully not breaking too much, but getting experience from day one and being productive. So it's very exciting, I think, for new graduates.
Yeah, some really interesting links between that earn and learn capability, I think,
Absolutely.
as well, which we might loop back to. Susan, for you and your industry and sector, what do you see as the career and employability opportunities over the next horizon?
Well, unfortunately, there's not a health pandemic, so everybody's not going to get healthy overnight. So we actually have a massive career run for us all. The thing about healthcare is it's a microcosm in its own right. So it's not just clinical people, like in my industry, dentists and oral health therapists and dental assistants and prosthodontists. I've got engineers that make the building run. I've got IT experts that keep all our IT running. I've got accountants. I've got HR people. Everybody within that microcosm, everything you can possibly think of that you would need. Cleaning staff, catering staff, the whole crew is what we actually deliver. So if you want a career that's really interesting, exciting, come into healthcare. The other part of healthcare is you can work in the public sector, you can work in the private sector, you can work for the not-for-profits. Everybody has a role to play, and it is quite expansive. You can work in community, you can work in acute hospital. So from a job opportunity point of view, healthcare's got pretty much everything, and we will be here for a very, very long time. So even if you're in the industry for 35, 40, 50 years, you will have a role to play in improving the health of the Australian population. And that's, the driver for us. The purpose is that we're here to improve people's health. And that's always a great purpose to get out of bed in the morning.
Certainly is. I think that diversity of the workforce that provides not only front-facing, but also back of house and support functions and those kinds of things is a really interesting call out for many people who might not be aware of that complexity of basically you run, pretty interconnected villages and communities across health. So it probably makes this question a little bit tricky, Susan, but maybe think about whether you want to give a couple of examples. I'm sure our attendees would be keen to know what qualifications and or skills or skill sets should graduates be working towards to start working with you and your service?
So from the oral health perspective, we obviously want people who are qualified in, dentistry or oral health therapy, or, we work with RMIT around the dental assisting program and also our prosthetics program. And really, we expect people to come out of university and be competent at that. But what's really important is getting people who actually align with that purpose and align with those values. So align with the organisation's values and what it is that we're trying to deliver. And people who come to the organisation enthusiastic to actually make a difference is what excites me when I see new graduates. It's like, why are you here? Well, if you're here because you just need a job, well, that's nice, but not particularly helpful. We actually want people that want more than that. They actually want to give to the organisation and want to give to the community. And I think they're the key skills that I certainly look for and my team looks for. Doesn't matter what part of the profession or what profession it is that you're turning up to interview for, you're turning up to work with us. It's that alignment with our values and alignment with the purpose and getting passionate about that.
Great insight. Thank you, Susan. One very important for our students to understand about that values alignment and or core drivers, no matter what industry sector it is that you are traversing. Mike, I might come around to you then for a similar question about what kind of qualifications or skills or skill sets are you looking for and employers in your sector looking for in graduates? Yeah,
I mean, there's a direct overlap there with what Susan was saying at the end around, passion, curiosity for for our particular industry, and then that that engagement for the purpose and for the mission. So at MYOB, we're here to help businesses in Australia and New Zealand survive and succeed. And so we really like to see people are engaged in that. And a big part of growing people into successful engineers is having them share that vision for our purpose. So that's front and center. Then really any of the STEM degrees will provide a great basis for coming into technology. We don't necessarily need people to know how to code when they start. We can teach that. And there's a real focus on being able to learn. You said before, earn and learn, Mish. So again, the best way to be growing people is giving them constant learning opportunities. So we can teach the programming, and what we really focus on is teamwork, collaboration, problem solving, communication. Those soft skills are all really important these days when it comes to building a great team to deliver value for our customers.
Thanks, Mike. And Ben, the same question for you as an employer. What kind of either formal qualifications or skills or skill sets are you looking for in the next era of graduates as they come through?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I mean, one, we're following the kind of trend when we advertise roles, etc., saying that there's no degree qualification needed or it's not mandated. But that doesn't mean that the foundational skills that someone will get through studying at RMIT aren't required. And so it's kind of a tricky balance between not being required, but then ultimately the skills that you get through doing a degree at a place like RMIT ultimately being required. And like Mike said, like you can teach coding. Coding's not necessarily prerequisite skill. It's problem solving, passion for what they're doing, having an open mindset and being able to communicate. And but it's kind of also to expand on what Mike is saying, from our perspective as a technology company, supporting technology companies, a lot of our focus is on supporting organizations like MYOB and finding people roles in the field, in companies, and I guess more than hiring directly in this market for us from a global perspective. But it's still going back to having a passion for what you're being engaged in, but also recognize that the first job you get isn't going to be the last job, and you might start off as a tester in somewhere that's actually a boring place, but that might get you to skills that you're going to use for your next job and the job after that.
Thanks, Ben. And that kind of leads in or is possibly a part answer to the next question I'm going to ask you. Knowing that we probably have a range of year 11 and 12 kind of school leavers and or people thinking about changing their career, what would be some core advice that you would give to them around some of the, I guess, appetite, ambition, risk-taking kind of things to explore?
Yeah, like I said, really the start isn't really the end of the journey. And, I studied manufacturing systems engineering at RMIT, but ended up getting a job in testing and for a telecommunications company. And so really, it's kind of just looking at it as a lifelong journey. You need to pick something that is you're passionate about at the time, that is going to give you skills and a foundational knowledge set and attitude and the ability to continue to learn and the industry exposure at the end to get a job in hopefully a field that you're interested in still. But that's not necessarily the end of where you'll end up.
Yeah, great reflection. Great reflection. Thanks, Ben. Susan, I might come to you for your, I guess, advice or guidance or provocation for our Year 11, Year 12 students, and also those more mature audience participants who might be thinking around a career change, whether they're in their 20s or 30s or 40s or even 50s.
Thanks, Mish. I'd pick up on what Ben said. You need to understand who you are right now, which is not who you're going to be in, 20 years' time, but what are you passionate about and what makes you tick? Like, there's no point if you are really people-driven person and you like interacting with people, then there's no point becoming a coder who sits in a corner and codes. You know, yes, they might be part of a team, but how do you actually make sure that you're actually picking a career that makes sense to you about who you are? So part of it is doing a little bit of soul searching about what it is that makes you tick and makes you happy, and then looking at careers that would actually fit into that. But I'm completely with Ben. Where you start's not where you're going to end up, and it's about getting those skills as you go to go, oh, now I'm capable of doing X, so therefore what else could I possibly do, and not, I guess, narrowing your skill set down, being broad around that, so that you can go, yeah, I can do that. And part of it for me is back yourself. If you think you can do it, you can do it. Have a crack at it. You know, unless you're a brain surgeon, not too much bad can go wrong.
Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep going straight down that road. It's you know, there's no penalty in choosing wrong, if you like. So make a start. Anything that you learn along the way is going to add value for the next things that you do. So we see so many people coming to us where they've done different degrees, they've started different careers. In our most recent developer intake, which is a program that we run with RMIT for women to do a career switch from out of technology to come into technology. There's such a diversity of backgrounds there. I'm just kind of looking at some of the, we've got landscapers, I think there's bakers, there's a counter-terrorism analyst, a couple from pharmacy, a doctor, and they're all coming to technology now at various ages, even in their 50s. And far be it from being no penalty, there's a real benefit in the diversity of background and thinking that they bring to the teams that they're going to join, and that experience that they've brought along the way. So you don't have to get it right first, just keep learning and let your career evolve.
That's a great reflection for many people, Mike. I think it's not there's no wrong choice, no wrong answer. It just adds to your experience base, and sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't, but all of those build your repertoire of human and technical skills and expansive thinking along the way. So really appreciate those insights from all our panellists. Now, our industry partner, as RMIT, our industry partners play a huge role in shaping our students for jobs of the future. And Mike, you were talking a little bit about that program that we run there. So I just wondered if you had a little bit more sort of uncovering for our community who are listening around what that connection with RMIT looks like from your lens, because we obviously see it as important. Importantly high value for our students and for us organisationally, but really keen on your insights. And then I might go to Susan and then Ben.
Yeah, sure. So the program I was talking about is our developer program, and that's seeking to address two of the main issues that we're seeing in our technology workforce at the moment. First is we still haven't got to a good even gender split in our technology roles, so we're always seeking to find new ways to bring women into technology. And secondly, we're not getting enough STEM graduates through every year, so that to grow our workforce in technology, we need to attract people back in from other careers. So our developer program is a way for women who've commenced careers elsewhere. You know, I was talking about accounting or doctors or bakers, landscapers, to do a 6-month curriculum, which is custom built for us by RMIT, so that they can become graduate software developers with us at MYOB. It's a really exciting program. I met our most recent intake a few weeks ago, really inspiring stories by the ladies there. And they're all hard at work at the moment. I think they're maybe 6 or 8 weeks into their course, and it's a really exciting program that we run.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear about it, and such a tangible kind of structured connecting point as well. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps just talking
I reckon,
about it. It's a great one. Yeah.
When we're looking for levers to make a difference to that great intractable problem about diversity and bringing in more gendered balance, not just because of the richness it provides to you as employers. That's a fantastic example that it makes the hair stand up on the back of the neck when we think about it. Susan, your connection or your organisation's connection with RMIT, I'm really keen to hear your reflections on that.
So the two programs that we work with RMIT on, one is our dental assisting certificates. So we've got a variety of those, and also our prosthetists program. So they're the people that, if people are wondering what that is, they're the people that make your dentures for you or make your implants and those sorts of things. So the connection works really well because we actually spend a lot of time with the team, our RMIT contacts around, so what's the next step for our dental assistants? What are the new skills that we need them to develop as the world changes? As I said, as we move down this more, how do we actually improve people's self-management of their oral health? So how do we actually get people who can understand behaviour change? How do we get the dental assistants to support in that way? Obviously, during COVID, we've spent a lot of time together working through how do we continue to train people safely? So how do we keep them engaged in the program when a lot of it has to be done remotely? So from that perspective, it's how do we make sure that the graduates are work ready so that they can hit the ground, as Mike said before, they're there day one actually delivering. So there's lots of work we do making sure that the programs actually work for all of us and that the students have a really good I guess, opportunity for work going forward. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic relationship and it works extraordinarily well from our perspective.
Thank you, Susan. A terrific reflection. And Ben, over to you. Be really keen to hear a bit more about your organisation's connection with RMIT.
So, like Susan said, hitting the ground running. From my perspective, GitHub, like I said, as a platform that helps people develop software, right, and empowers developers at MYOB, etc. For us, what we're doing is we're invested in the School of Computer Sci and then more broadly in some other areas around making sure and investing in RMIT's faculty to make sure that the students are using the technologies that they actually will find relevant when they get out of university. So, we talk about, 5 years and things like that. Technology changes a lot in 5 years. And our investment in RMIT and relationship is about restructuring and working with the computer sci and the teachers and lecturers around how to develop software and ensuring that they're getting the right skills, technology into the hand of the graduates as they're doing their courses so that when they get to the end, it's not a case of learning a whole new set of technologies that they haven't been exposed to, and they can actually hit the ground running in a role in the industry that they're playing in. Because, without that, if everything's kept in academia, then it's completely disconnected from the job that someone's going to get as soon as they leave. And so, we're really helping reshape how degrees are done and taught within the university, using our technologies and the best of them to ensure that when they come out, graduates are in the best place to be able to actually get a job in the field that they've been studying.
Yeah, it's a terrific example, I think, around how that concept of real-world skill and knowledge acquisition and our graduates having the confidence because they've used those tools before, no matter what the environment may be, is so crucial to everybody's success, to you as employers and industry stakeholders having people come in who have that preliminary level of confidence and or appetite for inquiry and understanding, and then how that translates to you helping them along their way become more technically confident in your areas of expertise. So I've got a COVID question, given we remain in lockdown in Victoria at the moment, and the global pandemic has had such a huge effect on so many communities and individuals. Could you explain to me a little bit about how COVID has impacted employability within your industry? So whether it's impacted on employability rates or the types of roles, or maybe just the recruitment methodology itself. Mike, I might start with you, please.
Sure. We spoke a little bit before about how demand for people has increased for digital companies, and certainly in health as well. You know, health and technology, I'll tell you what, they're just powering out of this pandemic. So employability, in a word, is increased. You know, there's so much more demand for people. And then I guess the way that we're working obviously is changing. We're working from home, we're working remotely, and that is very much a normal way of working now. I think many of our businesses are going to a point where that won't fundamentally change in the next couple of years. So I think at MYOB we're looking at 1 to 2 days in the office a week, 3 to 4 days at home. I'm sure GitHub's the same. So there's a balanced way of working there and a new way of working, which means we get to spend more time with our families, balance that workload out. And we need to find new ways of collaborating. It can be really difficult finding ways to collaborate when you're not running into each other on the floor of the office every day of the week. So there's some really interesting new challenges around collaborating, team building, knowledge sharing. I think actually one thing I forgot to mention there is for Australia and New Zealand is skilled migration is pretty much stopped for at least the next couple of years due to travel restrictions. And that is also placing a great demand on graduates coming out of universities. When I'm speaking to our proteges in our Future Maker Academy, you know, there's still lots of uncertainty at that stage of their career around, am I valuable? Can I provide value? And we're saying to them, oh my God, just come on.
Absolutely, come on
just
in.
learn and we are ready.
Yeah.
We've got so much work to do. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. Ben, I might come to you for your reflections around COVID-19 and the employability question within your organisation and then your sector, and then Susan, the same for you on the horizon.
I think I touched on it slightly before. I actually think the employability in Australia is like Mike said, increased. You know, I guess historically, if you look at some of the companies like GitHub, you know, founded in San Francisco, and you had to go there to get a job in a place like a GitHub, right? Even though we were operating in a remote workforce capacity, you know, Australia's not we don't have an official office here in Australia still. And so all of the Australians are classified as remote work, but really we're still headquartered in San Francisco. And I think the employability of a role in GitHub in Australia has absolutely increased because this need for being in an office is kind of diminished to almost disappeared. And so we've hired a number of roles in Australia that otherwise would have been fulfilled elsewhere because we can. And, you know, the collaborative nature, yeah, maybe we're not on planes as much, but, you know, the amount of work has only increased and supporting industries like health and technology, but the need for being in a specific location being removed means that, you know, the employability in technology, and it's not just GitHub, it's other tech companies that are establishing a presence in Australia because the time zone's good for the rest of the APAC region. Language skills, culture is really aligned to some of the other technology companies that would otherwise be in the US. So there's more roles in technology in Australia as a result of the situation.
So it's really expanded that concept of a borderless global community.
Absolutely.
One of the COVID silver linings has been living and breathing that in your industry sector and seeing that able to be delivered. Yeah. Susan, some different challenges, I suspect, for COVID-19 impacting the employability within your industry. I'd be keen to hear some of those reflections.
Thanks, Mish. Yeah, it's been a really interesting 18 months. Obviously, from the oral health perspective, we've had to reduce the types of services that we can actually provide, just actually only providing quite acute care for people rather than the normal general dentistry or the general oral health that we would be able to provide, but it's really given us the opportunity to think differently about how we provide service. And we actually have stood up 3 different streams of tele-dentistry in the time that COVID's been around to enable us to triage people. So do you actually need to come and see us, or can we give you some antibiotics over the phone or some painkillers or whatever it might be, but also for us to be able to triage those most in need. So those who do need to come and see us, and actually being able to support them through that process. But then also, how do we help people who we can't see continue to manage their oral health? And a lot of that is actually quite simple. It's very simple self-management. So we actually have changed the way that we work quite substantially. All of our back of house, a lot of our back of house are working from home, a bit like everybody else, 2 days in the office, a couple of days at home, etc. But our clinicians are still working on the front line. During COVID, we've split them into teams. So if somebody does end up coming in with COVID, we haven't decimated the whole service. So there's lots of different challenges in that space. But going forward, we have lots of opportunity, particularly in the IT space, because we are becoming more digital. We are actually looking at different ways of doing things. Data analytics is a massive part of health now. If you had have spoken to me 10 years ago about looking at data around different parts of health, I would have gone, oh yeah, it's important. But now it's like absolutely critical that we understand what we're doing is actually making the right difference. So are we actually treating people in the right way? So all of those things around data analytics and IT are massive shifts in healthcare going forward. So I'm with Mike and Ben. There's multiple opportunities in that space as well. Not just the clinical hands-on work, but that will always be there. As I said, there's no health pandemic coming down the pipeline that I can see. So we are going to need people in the health industry for quite some time.
And as you mentioned earlier, I think, Susan, in that the next phase of recovery and health prevention as well, but it's been a really interesting phenomena as a consumer or a client to see that escalation into telehealth and how some areas, including your own, have really now started to understand its reach and possibilities. It's something that 3 years ago everyone was a bit medium around, and this has really dialed it up, hasn't it?
But I think also that technology has really enhanced that. So, if you had have talked about building a oral health digital platform to do telehealth 3 years ago, the team would have said, oh, that's a massive project. It's going to take months, bloody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lockdown, 2 weeks later, up and running. Thanks very much for coming. So because the technology platforms are there and it's all much more interoperable than it has been, particularly in health, we're very insular, sharing stuff. So it's actually been really helpful that the platforms now are much more capable and we're accepting of those. So huge changes for healthcare going forward. We're nowhere near where we should be. It's massive shifts to come yet.
Thanks, Susan. I might throw to you, Ben, and then Mike, for what's a highlight that you've experienced working in your industry?
So I think actually, silver lining on COVID, I do think that, really for me in terms of this last period, like Susan was also saying, some of the solutions and things that have been done with technology at rapid pace. You can kind of look at how we've adapted and all the changes have been made that technology and software development and digital experiences have kind of really accelerated through this whole period. And the things that it's supported, we've been part of like the helicopter flying on Mars, software that powered that, through to telehealth services being spun up in a couple of weeks to support the pandemic. I think the exciting thing for me is just the problems that we've been able to help solve in every industry over the last 18 months.
Thanks, wonderful insights. Mike?
I think really the last 10 years, what surprised me, it surprised myself personally actually, is how much more, someone said human-centered before, it might have been you, Mish, how much much more human-centered our industry is, and working within really close-knit, diverse teams to deliver something awesome to a customer. And because of the way we work, we're closer to the value that we're delivering as well. So it's a much more vibrant, exciting place to be at work, working with these amazing teams and delivering value that are to customers, helping people. And that's not something I envisaged in my career at the very, very start, I think, when I got into software engineering.
Wonderful reflection. Susan, I'm going to come to you with another question from our audience, which you spoke a little bit about, I think, earlier as well in your answer. But the audience participant outlines, I'm currently a high school student. I'm interested in digital health. What advice could you give me in terms of future job trends in this field? And Ben or Mike, if you've got any additions after Susan responds to that, I'd be keen on your thoughts as well.
Thanks, Mish, and thanks for the question. It's a great question. As I said earlier, health is a microcosm. So we need digital enablement or IT enablement for everything that we do. So it doesn't matter whether you want to get into the telehealth space, whether you actually want to get into data analytics space, whether you want to actually develop the next AI that's going to support healthcare. It's the world's your oyster in that space. So, and it's a massive industry. It's one of the biggest industries in the world. So if that's where you're thinking that you would like to head, there will be multiple opportunities, and I'm sure Mike and Ben would have many more than I know or understand what's coming on the horizon. Healthcare will always be a person-centered industry. We will always need people there to care, but the way that they care and the support systems to help them deliver that care is where that massive shift is going to happen in the coming years.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you for those insights. Ben or Mike, did you have anything else on the I guess what we call the digital health front?
Yeah, I remember looking at a couple of the applications for our recent developer intake, and one of the successful candidates is in pharmacy at I think at the Royal Melbourne here, and I think she's got multiple doctorates and she's loving her pharmacy, but she's frustrated with the systems and the delivery of services there, and so she really wants to come back to the technology side. So it's really interesting because it goes back to the question of what direction do I go in, and there's so many really amazing opportunities for people that are doing both and then bringing them back in later. At the moment, there's lots of opportunities between health and technology, but that's what happens as we evolve and move forward over the next 20 to 30 years.
Thanks, Mike. Ben?
Yeah, look, I used to work for a technology platform company, and I'd say, there are many technology platforms that could help in the kind of digital health space, but, really it's the health bit that's important. Like, focusing on why health is interesting and understanding the domain of health and the kind of problems that would be solved by technology, because technology itself is kind of dry. And so coming back to the human side of things is really, if your passion is getting into digital health, then knowing as much as you can about the domain of health that you're interested in, there's many, and what technology can help solve and what it can't, and how to connect those things. There's, in terms of the digital bit or the technology, there's certain languages and platforms, but it's actually the health and interest in health that's actually the important piece. And so, you should really just chase that kind of passion, because it may not end up solving the problem that you thought you were going to solve, but there's plenty of challenges to solve within digital health.
Fantastic insights. Thank you. Another audience question, this one for you, Ben. Is spatial data and analysis used in your industry in any way? And potentially over to Mike as well. Yeah,
I mean, I'll cover it in terms of yes across industry, but I guess we do look at a whole bunch of location information across our user base globally, and what what people are developing, what languages people are developing, which markets are developing what, where we need to be focused on for things like education. Where are the world's developers? Where is the world's open source? And that's all based on spatial information that we get off our global platform. So, in a nutshell, yes, but it is what powers, I guess, what services we offer in markets globally.
And Mike, from your lens?
At MYOB, not massively, we are doing some really interesting data analysis and science to help connect small businesses to either to trades or to suppliers. So there's obviously a spatial aspect there. Across the industry, though, like, it is massive. If you're interested in the spatial data side of things, there is just so much opportunity, and that's just going to grow. So, yeah.
And another audience question. I'll kick this one off with you, Mike. Would a candidate with postgraduate degree have more advantage to be employed than one who has an undergraduate degree in your industry?
Good question. It's interesting, and I would almost put it in the same. I think there's another question somewhere around the benefits of a university education. So when we are looking at candidates for our programs, it's very much an even playing field. But what we see in our university graduates is there's a track record of learning and being able to learn, as well as, if it's a computer science degree, then demonstrating an interest and passion in something that we're going to be using every day in our career. So I think it's a way of getting you further along the journey there, and it really helps to show that interest. And I would argue that people coming out of that university degree are better set up to be learning in a quicker time frame.
Yep. Ben, over to you about the benefits of a university qualification and the linkages with your industry.
Yeah, I kind of follow the same angle from Mike's perspective, really. I mean, we are both technology companies on different sides of the coin, but I think it is, the important thing, I think, is, really that they have the experience of learning and applying, and basically problem thinking, and really, the importance of a specific degree is not so, it's kind of diminished these days.
Susan, from your lens, with the diversity of workforce that you have?
Yeah, so for some roles, a university degree is mandatory. You can't be an accountant if you're not an accountant, for example. But we do have quite a few roles within the industry that don't require university degrees. I think the benefit, and as I think both Mike and Ben have already said, the benefit of a university degree is that ability to learn and that ability to question and that ability to problem solve. That's what, in my mind, university teaches you, and they're really good skills to have no matter what it is that you want to do in life. So it's that ability to question everything and actually have a look at what's going on, I think, gives you a really broad understanding of that. So from my perspective, an undergraduate degree prepares you for that. Certainly doesn't make you the best problem solver or the greatest inquisitor of all time, but it certainly sets you on the right path for that. Would a postgraduate degree make a difference? It depends. Many of our leadership roles have, masters in business, or they have a postgraduate in business administration or leadership, those sorts of things. It helps. It's certainly not, it's not the be all and end all for our industry, that's for sure.
Yeah, thanks for those insights. There's a question for me, which I might also get Susan's insights as an employer on in particular. So the question was, how can I make my application for Diploma of Nursing stand out at RMIT? I heard the program is competitive to gain entry to, which it is. My best advice for applicants is to think about a well-rounded individual. So there's a piece around your activity through formal learning, but also including in your resume or your CV and the examples that you bring, how you've expanded your repertoire of human skills. So do you do volunteering? Do you do part-time work? And not just do you do those, but what have you learned, or what are some of the tangible components out of that? So often it might be an individual has volunteered as a captain or a leader in a surf lifesaving context, for example, for a number of years, and they've got experience in managing diverse communities and communicating with people in risky and also fun situations, that they've had to manage unexpected events, that they've had to think and plan for safety as well as for how they can group and gather the expertise of their other surf lifesavers together to solve critical problems. So all of that adds to your application being not just about your academic achievement, but also about an expansive repertoire. And then I might throw to you, Susan, but I would suggest some of those examples and how you build those in as you're studying as well would be things that you might look for as an employer in the health sector in particular.
Absolutely, Mish. I could not agree with all the things that you said more. It's really about, what are those other skills that you bring to the table around being a team player, about being able to solve problems as you go. Any examples that you can give of that? If you volunteer is always something that makes people feel like, oh, they actually want to give back to the community. So there's always something in that space as well. Part of it also, if you're looking for part-time work, are you actually doing part-time work in an industry that supports those skills? So, are you doing part-time work in McDonald's might be fine, but if you're doing part-time work in an aged care home, you probably get a slightly bigger tick. So I would agree with everything you said, Mish, but there'd be a couple of other things that I'd add to that.
And Mike and Ben, I might come to you for continuing that thread about as early career entrants, what are some of the pieces that you look for as far as kind of complementing that that formal study and academic achievement as well as well-rounded individuals?
Yeah, well, I think the good news is for students out there looking, it's almost exactly the same there. When you've got a set of CVs in front of you, some graduates, some not. It's what's differentiating people there, and it's interests, hobbies, volunteer work, anything that's kind of rounding those individuals out and allowing them to bring diversity of thinking and ideas to the table once they're working in a team with us. It's really, really important.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting in this market. We probably don't employ very many graduates into our organisation, but I do think it's still, the passion or actually understanding and doing the research into what problems or how a technology or a solution is being used within the wider community, and actually investing in trying to understand what the company is about, not just relying on a resume or some skills that you learned at uni, but really trying to understand, I guess, the company's role in the community that they operate and the things that they do, and showing investment that you've actually gone and done some research into while you're doing it.
Fantastic, thank you. And we are nearing the end. I'm going to pose to each of you a bit of an overarching question. So if there's one key takeaway you've learned in your career that's helped you individually navigate through, what would it be and why? And I might come to you first, Susan, and then Ben, and then Mike.
Thanks, Mish. Don't expect this to be a linear journey. You're not going to continually move up the ladder. Expect to move sideways, downwards, roundabout, and always say yes. If somebody gives you an opportunity, put your hand up and jump at it.
Wonderful. Ben?
I think seek out those things that are challenging and interesting to you, and try and solve those. That's definitely for myself kept me shifting through companies and roles, and really just find that thing that you're interested in, that's challenging to you, not the easy, and take a few risks.
And Mike?
Really good, really good. I think for me, you out there, you're looking at formal qualifications, so you're going deep on a particular area. as your career develops, you'll start going wider as well, and there's so much value there in terms of working with other people, different roles in your teams, learning how to work and collaborate, and learning more about those other roles. And there's a lot of value that comes there. So you start deep somewhere, but then you'll spread out over other areas, and that's where you become tremendously valuable over time.
Thank you so much to each of you. I would like to thank our amazing panellists, Susan, Ben and Mike, for some just tremendous expert insights into the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow, and some really unexpected connections between so many industry areas as well. So I'm really excited to see where these discussions and ideas lead for our prospective students and our existing students. I think there were some great challenges thrown out there and opportunities. So thank you to everyone who has attended today in our virtual world. And if anyone would like to see more of RMIT or watch this session again, to come back to perhaps some bits that you want to replay, our Open Day platform is available till the end of September. And I hope our audience members found the session insightful, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how you unlock what's next at RMIT University for you. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Susan. Thank you to our community. Please take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mish.
Thanks, Mish.